What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm bringing you something a little different. I decided I want to start doing some recording in my editing booth here, which is also where I do my podcasts. The reason why I want to do it is because, for one thing, I have a much better mic than a cell phone mic, and it's a lot easier to, well, for one thing, record and just make videos from here. So on today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the footage that I recorded at Bren Tuning going over the 21 ZX10R. Kind of more of a breakdown from his perspective of the new bike and what he found with the bike. We're also going to be showing you Nick's performance, his new stacks for the 16 and newer ZX10, and showing you what they do on a dyno. Now, a little disclaimer before watching, this is also with no ram air, so keep in mind things change with ram air. I've done my own testing on the stacks do work, but this is a set of stock 2019 stacks versus Nick's stacks. So I'm not going to waste any more time blabbing. Here is the footage I recorded at Bren Tuning.
So we put in these performance stacks. Evan threw them in like 10 minutes. Real easy to do. We wanted to run the exact same testings that we did this morning. So we run 3 baselines as is, standardizing the temperature, and then most cases, you know, we do obviously do the same thing with the stacks as well. So we did some stacks as is, and we saw the fuel changes. What we're seeing correlate here is where the bike changed and wanted fuel, which is this area and this area, like 10 to 13,000. Where the bike leaned out about 12.8 to 13.2 is where you see the gains. So here we're seeing about 3 to 4, there's 5 horsepower in some cases. Little loss here, could possibly receive that back with a full header, and then gains up here 2-3 horsepower. These runs are done after we corrected the fuel and made it identical. You'll actually laugh. You can see down here, we legitimately made it identical. So 12.96. So these gains aren't from running a little leaner, a little richer. We spent a lot of time getting it as close as possible, and you know, you can see the little gains throughout. Gain here is just by basically moving the funnel shape. It pushes it back versus forward, and then, like Evan said, this squirrely area of the torque curve will change when it's no longer slip-on.
Basically from like 5,000 or so, from what I see going back to back on a bike, to about 11,000 or so is where they pick up all of their snot with the full system versus the slip-on. Maybe 1 or 2 up top, but for the most part, the stock header does flow well, but it's the velocity where it lacks that people commonly confuse with back pressure. It's a velocity you want, never back pressure.
So what I see is what Evan said, same thing on the other bikes, especially the BMW you see day in and day out. If you were to have a full system with a tuned header, you can essentially take the torque curve line from here at $6 grand and draw it straight to 11,000. You can see where it wavers, and it's it's a little different. Very similar. If you have any bike, the front of the header is more important than most people think in the design and the balance tube. If you say you had a full system Acura, I can pretty much say from experience, the dips in this line straight up go all the way to 11,000, and it cleans that up, and then you're going to see another, I'd say 5 or 6, 7 foot-pounds.
Yeah, I typically see on street tuning with going from, say, a slip-on, a good flowing slip-on that will flow just what it needs, to a full system in that range, that like 5 to 6,000 to 11,000 or so. I'll see up to 13% fuel. It's pretty wild how much more fuel the bike needs down there with a full system.
Airflow mods on the airbox side always pay dividends, not necessarily on the dyno, but on the street. There's no real perfect 200 mile an hour airflow that you're going to see here. So if you see something here, you definitely see a greater multiplier when you're on the street.
Yeah.
If you're seeing a velocity stack that doesn't require fuel, something's wrong. So that's the same thing when we realize testing.
Yeah.
More air. If you're seeing a significant reduction in fuel, there's a problem. So overall,
and that's kind of been my whole rule of thumb with the whole street tuning. Obviously, the street doesn't have a dyno, and GPS has its anomalies. So my tried and true method when comparing small objects like this has been same tune, air, fuel, back to back. What's it do different? And that kind of tells you.
And perfect example of that is the areas in the curve, which is like right about here, like 10.2, and very up top, like 14,000. There was almost no difference in the baseline tune in these areas where there were no gains.
Yeah.
Air fuel didn't change. It didn't request any more fuel. So like what Evan said, it's rough math and a rough estimate, but
Yeah.
it correlates exactly what he sees is what I see here.
Yeah. I know on my own personal bike, which is a little bit different of a comparison, a head cam bike with a full pipe on it, but that bike in particular, at no point did I have to pull any fuel, and I added 3 to 6% in areas, and up top, I don't think there was anything negligible past like 13.5. It was all about the same, which kind of shows on here too. So.
Yep.
Realistically, that's where the ZX10 suffers. They tend to sing with ram air on the street, and but where they've always suffered is that long first gear makes them a little lazy compared to, say, BMWs and even like, say, R1s. R1s have a much shorter first gear. So, and not to mention between that and the new S1000 with the shift cam, the older style of motor, which would be, let's say, this in a CBR, they all suffer in that mid-range. So a stack like this, as you can see, is gonna. The initial twist is going to get you moving a little bit better.
So for comparison's sake, let's just look at, I'm just going to close these out. Let's just look at the baseline, which was a Works slip-on, a filter, and a power commander with obviously a 0 map in it, as you can see. It's just in there. I mean, you can see it was 14.5.
Yeah.
And then we're going to compare that with Run 22, which is our final test here. So definitely some big bottom end gains, even with the factory header. This is where we believe the header will become bigger. You can obviously see it twist back in, but a lot of this up here is fueling, throttle restriction, ignition, most importantly, rev limiter. This is nothing new, 13.8. It has, what is it, almost 86 more horsepower.
Yeah.
We're revving it out to 14.4. It seems to, just about arc and finish off over there with full control over that stuff. And obviously the speed limiters and things like that. Evan, anything you want to say about this versus previous years or improvements?
I mean, for the most part, to my understanding, the 21 motor is the same as the 19 to 20 in terms of the base motor. I believe only the RR got a internal upgrade, which I believe it got titanium pistons, was the only change. For the most part, it seems the 21 is, a cosmetic uplift. You've got the fancier dash over here,
Very
which
important.
is, yes, for guys like Ebe, that is crucial. The front end, obviously, has been changed. I'm 50-50 on the headlight design, but it does have, LEDs and stuff like that, so that's all. Yeah, exactly. And I got the tail upgrade, which I do like the tail better. And this is actually something that I really liked about the bike was it's got full electronic throttle and not the fake cable to try and fool your hand into thinking you have cable throttle. The BMW, when they went electronic throttle, was like that since day one. Kawasaki and a lot of the JDM bikes, they've like trickled out that whole fake cable that goes to a sensor to make it feel like it's cable. Either way though, the 19 to 20 motor that this likely still has is nothing to sneeze at. In my opinion, it's one of the most potent motors out there, especially for the price of what you can get this bike. You know, the Honda is still my current wet dream of a motor. The new M1000 motor, I'm curious to see what you can do with that, you know, given some real time with it. I think you were telling me that the changes to the motor should all attribute to more power. I mean, lighter rotating assembly, supposedly it has a different cylinder head, or at least a different head port, I should say.
Steering.
Yeah, so.
The difference we've seen that bike, there's more limiters in it than the older bike, so there's a few things we're working on that are holding it back.
Yep.
We're obviously gonna put some attention on that maybe the next few weeks. Actually, this bike and the ZX2 has gotten more attention than my own personal M. So
I mean, maybe I'm a little biased towards Kawasaki because it's mostly what I deal with, but this bike is a very popular bike that people are going to want to have tuned.
Yeah,
and
it's like kind of the hardest to do as far as getting into it.
Yeah.
But to tune, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I'm used to banging my head against the wall for weeks and months, like the Honda and like the Yamaha. But this is, it's pretty straightforward. It's not a one-to-one with the older bikes from what I can see. So expect some positive changes, like the tables are scaled out further. They're actually scaled out to 16,000 RPM, making me think that there's they know there's a newer generation or a newer race version or something that's going to come out that's going to use that when the older ones were scaled much shorter.
Yeah.
They always do. I see it in other manufacturers. They're planting seeds for later. They're making one electronic and then they're going to build the motor around it. Very similar when the B4 Ducati came out. The M3D old Continental ECU couldn't read as far as that bike would rev.
Yeah.
So they basically made that ECU and that processor to read like 16.5 RPM because the V4R was coming out.
Yeah.
The previous one, which was the same similar ECU in the Monster, revved to like 13,000. So they basically built the computer around, they upgraded the computer around that bike.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing something similar here. The tables are also scaled in the ZH2 that way. Good things to come. The one thing that, about this motor is how happy it is, whether it's rich, lean, overtimed, undertimed. It's just a resilient motor you can beat the shit out of with a half-ass tune and it's still going to perform.
And in my opinion, that's a big part of why, even the average Tom, Dick, and Harry who does everything themselves can still go pretty good on these bikes.
13.3 to 14.2, a lot of bikes nod off in this range.
Yeah.
This is why you see a max effort ZX10, which doesn't necessarily have a ton right here or a ton right here. Quick shifter kill times and everything, dead nuts. That's why they're fast without 210 horsepower, is they're in this range the whole time. When a lot of other bikes at 14K are in the 180s.
Yep.
Or the R1 is in the 170s. So the only other bike that does that is the BMW and the Honda.
Yeah.
And the BMW and the Honda chassis aren't as figured out and as good as this. So this bike does a lot with a little.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
For sure, yep.
And I was impressed to see that. A lot of bikes will peak this area probably around 13.2 and then they're done.
Yeah.
So revving out a Gen 1 S1000 with 30K in it,
Yeah.
tired to 15,000, it's really not accelerating any faster.
Yeah.
This is nice.
Yeah.
This was nice to see. And I'm biased clearly to other stuff. I've heard some funny things in the last week. This bike has a power commander on it. It's had a power commander on it. We are not tricking.
Yeah.
Some guy actually called and said, I heard you just tricking the throttle position sensor and tuning with a power commander. That's pretty funny and a lot of work. You can't rev like this doing that.
Yeah.
You can't
100%.
do what we've done. Exhaust valve, all these other items with setting 12 volt maximum to the TPS on a switch. I understand that's been done before and that's fine. That's a cool way to see what the bike's capable of. It's tuned in the same manner that we do everything else, the diagnostic port. But I just wanted to add that because you hear something every day.
Oh yeah.
And that was pretty funny. We don't do this for attention. Evan and me get along because we like figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
And we like seeing people excited and going fast. We don't care to be first. We don't care to be last. We like making maximum safe potential outside of what we can do without, stressing it out. It's the same thing, like, doing it in this manner is the same way with the ZH2. We learned a lot about that. What I learned from this bike, I attributed to that and made that super easy to tune as well. So those products will be out when we get inventory.
If you had to take a shot in the dark on ETA for this file to be available to the public, because I have guys in my inbox constantly asking me about that.
The problem isn't that it's ready. It's actually funny. It's supply chain issues on.
Yeah.
The Kawasaki has a very specific cable, much like an Aprilia, that uses a 12-volt power lead. All the new bikes use this connector, right? CAN bus 05 connector. Kawasaki decided to leave the 12-volt power out of it.
We don't need that.
Yeah, we don't need that anymore. They use the 12-volt power out of it, so we need a special cable that it clicks from here and goes to the power in your battery. If you've owned an Aprilia before, or you've seen any of our Aprilia products, the exact same thing. It's specific to Kawasaki. We are making those as fast as possible and getting them here. Don't shoot the messenger. I'd say 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We have our rush stock of 25 that we're gonna release to like the people that we've talked to from day one. Any people that you want to deal with, that we're gonna have like a pre-release for them. Brock's Performance. People are gonna ask, will it make 200? Yeah, absolutely. This bike will make 203 on MR12 all day long. Yeah. Which is competitive with anything else out there. Brock's Performance, Brock Davidson, him and I talk all the time. Great guy. He's another person that's helped with this and getting this in the ZH2, getting us the information we need, getting us electronics we need. He's bugging me about the Busa.
Yeah,
but he's such
I think that's probably going to be your next JDM big one is the Busa.
I think
I think that one will probably do better than the 10 in terms of the community that wants to see what they have.
We haven't started yet, but it's on the radar.
Yeah.
Aprilia too.
All right, so Bren's off doing his own thing right now, and I'm going to talk about my new favorite bike right now, which is the Honda. As a lot of guys who follow me on like social medias and stuff, you know that I'm been kind of harping on how the new Honda motor is pretty badass. This is a decent comparison between the ZX10 and the new Honda 21 bikes. The one advantage the Honda has in this scenario is that it has a full system, whereas this has a slip-on. So a lot of this area where there's a big gap there will be closed by having a full system on the ZX10. But there's nothing the full system is going to do about that up top. And let's face it, that's what counts when you're racing. You know, once you leave your starting gear, which is down here, you rev out and you click into the next gear, you're primarily staying up here. You guys know I'm a friend of the ZX10 because it makes great power and it's super friendly usability wise. You can do what you want to or take the weight out of them. They're very efficient bikes. They rev well. My TBN revs quite a bit better than this, and this is still pretty solid for a stock engine bike. This is literally just how a slip-on, filter, and a set of stacks with Bren's file does. But either way, the Honda has it beat. And a lot of guys are like, oh, it's just a Honda, it's the old Honda. No, it's not. I've always said that Honda can make the power if they want to because they have the money, they just don't care. Well, this is them caring a little bit. So if there's anybody out there that wants to buy a Honda and do what Mr. Progno did with the V4R, please get at me because that's the bike that I want to build right now. Obviously, I want to build bikes like these two, and Bren being an hour from me, this could work out quite nice where, you know, he's either dyno tuning the bike or just doing, you know, the handheld tune, whatever you guys want. And me being an hour away can do all the mechanical stuff, any installs, setting the bikes up, etc. The only other option for tuning these things besides Bren right now is getting the race ECU, which I believe is the older ECU, and converting the harness and then tuning it that way, you know, via Woolwich or FTECU or one of those companies. I personally use Woolwich, but as of right now, there isn't anything to access the OEM ECU of these bikes. The downside to the race ECU, you're going to lose your headlights, you're going to lose a lot of the street creature comforts, tail light, stuff like that. But those are your basic options for this bike. Either way, I would like to work on these bikes mechanically because that's sort of my forte. There's a lot of decent tuners out there. A lot of guys I know that do this that I'm friendly with and are very good. This is particularly right now a bike that I can't tune, but if you give me the opportunity to work on it, I don't think you'll regret it because pretty meticulous when it comes to the mechanical stuff. Alright, now that you guys have seen all the footage between the ZX10R and my consensus on the new 21 CBR RRR, what do you guys think about both bikes, specifically the ZX10? Do you think Kawasaki might be gearing up for a new motor, like Bren said, with the new ECU that revs higher? Sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.